wrestling with wrestling's past and present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Do you see any of the aggro crag? Was any of that left over?
No, unfortunately not.
No?
I'm taking some of that home.
Definitely not is the barn burner that Lee Cassidy and Tiger thing was, but we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends soon.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
Is it still real to me? Damn it!
He kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put the Selena Vega on a pole match.
And I mean, Big E's got Whale performing in his entrance, so I feel like
Wale.
they would.
It's Wale.
Wale. I don't listen to. Okay, well, I don't listen to him, so I apologize to Wale.
This is in the mail, my good sir. No, it wasn't. Paul.
I feel like Vince is just gonna have them team together and be like, have them called Woo Bro. Like they're just gonna be the Woo Bros. Like, anyway.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely,
And then you can listen to us too.
Strap on and balls only on wrestling past and present.
This is Gangrel, the Vampire Warrior, and you're listening to Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Pulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And today it is all about Survivor Series 1991. But before we get into that, sorry about last week. I want to thank Mongo and Roland for holding down the fort. Life got in the way for me, so I wasn't able to do the episode last week. So thank you guys for holding the fort down.
Yeah, no problem. We know life gets in the way. Trust me, we all have different things. So we didn't break it this time, but that's because you distributed it. So Roland did a good job driving, and I was just kind of there. So I think we did okay.
I pride myself as a decent driver. I mean, Tim's driven with me. We haven't died ever.
No, not once.
We've had some close calls in the golf carts when they've slid and they weren't.
Yes.
There was one point, Mongo knows where it is, but Nippo Lake, they had the first hole, they have this hill on the side, and it was wet. And I turned to look, and I went a little bit, and we just started sliding. And Tim's literally like holding on for dear life, and I'm like, but we didn't die.
If we hit our balls in the fairway, we have a less chance of dying.
You're not wrong. Our golf records of hitting fairways are like, if we play an 18-hole round, we usually hit maybe 5 to 7.
Yeah, maybe.
That's 5 to 7 more than I usually hit. So I mean, that's a plus.
Well, I can't even reach the fairway.
There's sometimes where it would be 3 or 4, and sometimes there might be 8 or 10. But if I had to average it out, it's probably somewhere between 5 and 7. I mean, Tim was around 120-ish most times, and I was around 100 most times. I mean, it's not. You can tell just by those scores, it's not pretty golf.
No,
we got our money's worth. Put it that way.
Wait, doesn't highest score win? No,
no,
no, that's not how it goes.
That's bowling.
Yeah, I got a 300 in golf.
Yeah. But so thank you guys again. But yeah, we're back to full strength this week, talking about Survivor Series 1991. Kind of an interesting time in WWE land. They had a lot of kind of big storylines going on at the same time. You had the whole thing with Macho Man and Jake the Snake that they play, throughout the show. Where this is coming off the famous incident where Damien bit Macho Man for a while. So that famous segment. Ric Flair's in WWE. He's coming up as the World British Champion because he never lost the WCW belt. And then you had the whole storyline with Hogan and The Undertaker as your world title. So you had 3 major storylines going on at the same time, which is kind of unusual, for a pay-per-view to highlight 3 really big storylines.
Well, and you had Flair involved in the Hogan storyline too.
Yep.
Kind of like a love triangle, really, and or a hate triangle, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But wait till we go run down this card. Listen to the names.
Yeah,
this is easily one of the most star-studded pay-per-views we've ever covered. That, there's some name. Usually there's a couple of matches where you're like, okay, who the fuck are these guys? But there's only really one tag team on here, and you guys know who I'm talking about. I won't even say it. We'll get there. There's only one tag team that wasn't really over ever, and that's it. And all the singles stars were pretty much at least mid card or better. Like,
I mean, you guys know my thoughts. I'm not the biggest golden era fan, as they call this era, just because it is very character driven. But like Roland said, this has a lot of star power on it, and that's what Vince likes. He likes, the big names, the draws, and like Tim said, this was the culmination of a lot of storylines. You had Ric Flair, who just left WCW with their big gold, and he would have a storyline with that. You had Damien. It was pretty gruesome too. Like watching the clip they show on this pay-per-view, like they drew blood, and I remember being scared of that as a kid because Damien scared the shit out of me as a kid. And
well, I had heard that it was not supposed to go on as long as it did, and that Jake was trying to get the snake off of him.
Well, and some of it was too that they had decided that it needed to look good, and that ended up by Jake having the snake lock on really good. They couldn't get it off. That's what I mean. There was a few times where it like bit him and then kind of let go or whatever, and then he finally latched on, and they couldn't get the damn thing off.
No, there's a podcast I believe he did with Jericho last year where he kind of goes over saying what Roland just said, that they were trying to get the snake to latch on to get that good bite, and then he was like, "Oh fuck, it's really on there for real," and then
he's like slapping it. Yeah, he's like,
and the snake's like, "Oh, you're gonna hit me!" And then you have Randy, who if you don't know, who's fucking terrified of this thing in real life. The only way he agreed to do this bit was because backstage with Jake, he's like, "It's gonna bite you first. I don't want to die," and like, so I don't think that's kayfabe. I think he's legit fucking terrified when he's tied up getting bit.
Savage is like, "So, it's devenomized, huh? Let it bite you first." According to Jake, that's exactly what he's like. "Well, if it bites you and you live, we're on." And it's like, and Savage is just enough of like a crazy kind of out there thinker. Like you find out more and more as we go on. I wish he was, rest in peace. I wish he was still around. He definitely, after wrestling, kind of transcended as a person and became, he was a rapper for a little while. He had a beef with Hogan. Like he was larger than life. Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm not going to say he was more popular than Hogan, but he was. I mean, if you ask somebody off the street to name a wrestler, they're probably naming one of those two guys at that time.
I liked Macho more than Hogan. I'm going to be honest, because to me, Hogan is just the modern day Cena, Roman Reigns over push. And this pay-per-view really kind of showed where they kept saying, this is the death of Hulkamania. It was. This is when Hogan went stale. This is kind of when he started dipping out, going part-time before he bounced over to WCW because the fans were turning, without spoiling anything. Listen to the ovation in the Undertaker-Hogan match. Listen to when Undertaker's actually wrestling. He's getting more of an ovation. And Dave Meltzer reported, because I wanted to do some digging on this, like we usually do, they had a giant Undertaker sign on the hard cam that they had to take out before the show started because they didn't want support for Undertaker. So, it goes to show you that, you can have a great, once in a generation talent, but you can't shove them down people's throats because people were sick of seeing, the Hogans. They wanted to see the Jake the Snakes. They wanted to see the Macho Mans. They wanted to see the Flairs, the Duggins, which that's what I think made this card good is you got to see kind of a little bit of everything. It was like the buffet of the 90s for WWE.
Yeah, you got to see all of their characters in like one pay-per-view. Before we continue, I kind of came up with something while I was watching this. It's the holiday time, so if you're gonna like spend time, safely with your family and friends, I came up with a new drinking game for you. If you watch this show, if you watch Survivor Series 1991, you should take a shot every time they say the words Jack Tunney throughout the show. And
I'm starting now.
Yeah, right. Mongo's starting right now.
Mongo will not be with us by the end of this show.
No. So they must have said it like 100 million times.
The commentary was awful for this. It was just, ugh.
Wait a minute. You can't say Bobby McGrain and Gorilla Monsoon were awful.
No.
Okay, but no, I'm not saying that. No, listen, I'm not saying they themselves are awful.
Mute
I'm
him.
saying,
get him out of here.
No. I'm not saying they were awful. I'm saying like the commentary for this, because it was pretty much a big advertisement for the pay-per-view they were having in 6 days. And like you said, referencing Jack Tunney over and over. And I'm sorry, I love Gorilla Monsoon, but how many times is he going to call every match the irresistible force meets the immovable object?
That was his shtick, man. How many times are you going to hear Michael Cole say fucking vintage in every match?
Or boss
You know what I
time. So
Yeah.
again, obviously, there's always love for the Weasel. The Weasel was one of my favorite commentators back in the day. But I'm just saying, the commentary this pay per view was just very repetitive because this is when you can tell Vince really had more of his hand on getting what he wanted to get across. This was we need to promote this pay per view that's next Tuesday in Texas, because they were pushing that pay per view kind of like on Survivor Series. They were pushing The Rock's new terrible movie on Netflix.
I'm gonna put the disclaimer out there now, Tim, so we don't get any hate tweets. Tweet at Mongo.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Send your complaints to Mongo. What is it? At @WWPAP Mongo? Is that your Twitter handle?
Yeah, there you go. Or if you want to comment on the Facebook page about how wrong he is, I get what he's saying, but don't come at Gorilla and Bobby that way. I get what he's saying.
I'm saying the style of this commentary for this show, it wasn't that great of commentary for this particular show. I'm digging a hole. I don't care. I'm dying on this hill. I personally did not think they've commentated better shows. They've had better commentary. The commentary was lacking. The matches they were calling weren't terrible. It was their segues and their transitions. Like the Ric Flair match we're going to get into, they called that one well, and they helped make Ric Flair the heel he was. So I will give them credit for that.
Well, we'll get into the pay-per-view now. We have one dark match that I guess we should mention real quickly here. You have Chris Chavez. You might know him as Tanaka, getting a win over Kato, not Dava Kato, a little bit before his time, in about 7 minutes and 45 seconds here. I think Tanaka was – I don't even know if he was Tanaka at this point. Obviously not, because it's coming up with Chris Chavez. So I guess this match was to get the crowd going. I can't believe it would be a very good match, so I'm just going to kind of leave it at that.
You probably covered it. I mean, there's got to be a reason why it's not necessarily out there either. Like, it's not like it's some of these dark matches exist if they're good.
Yeah.
Keywords, if they're good.
Right. Well, that's not trying to say it was bad, but it probably wasn't good.
But so we begin the show. They kind of recap the whole Jake the Snake Roberts and Macho Man thing. They're both reinstated, which I didn't quite understand. Why would the Macho Man get banned or like suspended?
He had remember at WrestleMania 7, he had lost the match where he had to retire.
To the Ultimate Warrior. That's right. Okay, Gotcha. That's what it was. Okay, so they did that whole storyline. But we begin with a 4-on-4 Survivor Series match. Like Roland said, look at the names that are on here. Look at the Hall of Famers that are on this card, and then you get Virgil too. You have Ric Flair and the Mountie, Ted DiBiase and the Warlord, with about 100 managers here. You have Mr. Perfect, Jimmy Hart, Sensational Sherry, and Harvey Whippleman. They're going to get a win over Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, Virgil, and the British Bulldog. So, I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 Hall of Famers if you include the managers in here out of that match. I mean, that's just an incredible match. It went about just under 23 minutes, which I think, sometimes that could have been a little too long for a Survivor Series match, but when you have the talent that's in this one, I think it was, a good amount of time. The ending, though, a little clustery. Big cluster. Like, everybody just gets counted out or disqualified at the end, and Ric Flair's the sole survivor. There's, like, one elimination the rest of the match. I think it was the Bulldog. But so the ending was a little clustery, so I think that kind of spoiled it. But I think the star power on this alone, makes it a decent match worth watching.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a good chance they may have drawn it out a little bit too far, but it wasn't like it was bad to watch. It's just like you said, it was slow, a little slower than it needed to be. And I think some of that was they had so much star power, they wanted to make sure they were out there for a while. Like, if you put all those guys in one match, I mean, usually if you take those guys out, that could be like 8 matches.
Mm-hmm.
So I think their theory was, well, if we put them out there for like a half hour, that'll cover us for like the show, because if not, and I'm not saying it was a half hour, but I mean, it was probably longer than it should have been. And yeah, the way that finish, I mean, that finish was a joke. I don't understand the whole point behind it. Yeah, you had the Bulldog and Warlord were the only people eliminated. Bulldog eliminated Ric Flair by Ric Flair, and then Warlord was eliminated by Piper. Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah, and you still had like 5 minutes of match, and then they, like you said, just all got eliminated to give Ric Flair the win as sole survivor. I will say I wrote down my notes that he comes out and they had blurred out the title that he was carrying. That wasn't the big gold because at one point, like the black dot moves and you can clearly see it's the tag team title.
Yep.
So he's carrying. So that kind of made me laugh. I was like, that's weird because then later in the night we're going to see a promo where he clearly has the big gold because the blur moves. So I'm like, did he actually relinquish the big gold before? And then I just kept the storyline going because that was a little confusing to me. I think he must have because the taped promo, he had the big gold, and then a few weeks later, because he had just debuted September-ish. Because when
I believe so, yeah.
Because he wasn't there very long. It was like his first pay-per-view, but the match itself, was fine. Like you both said, it's star-studded. Like the Warlord does not get enough love. First and foremost, I think he's a fantastic talent. And I just thought though Ted DiBiase and Virgil kind of facing off was kind of comical. I like Virgil locked in. The $1 Million Dream, they kind of had little throwbacks to their feud. So it was definitely a good match. Like Roland said, it featured everyone. So it was like mini matches. But I think, the ending kind of kills it. And you know what also kind of kills Survivor Series too. Up to this point, there's a lot of Survivor Series matches. WWF at the time, Survivor Series was they would have multiple Survivor Series matches. They didn't really build in a lot of singles, but this is one of the first times they had like a singles match on the card. So I think they also didn't really know how to time it. Maybe that singles match threw it up like, okay, well, we got to give them time. So how are we going to do other time? So I think pacing was probably an issue, but it was a decent match overall. Like I definitely recommend watching because it's like you said, Hall of Famers, fucking Ric Flair's WBF pay-per-view debut. So, and it's Survivor Series. It's one of the better ones where the storyline meant something. It was actually a heel versus face. It wasn't brand supremacy.
So as part of the storyline of Flair declaring himself the real world champion, the physical belt will be blurred or blacked out by WWE's production staff under official orders due to the belt not being an official WWE title. When Flair worked to reach a financial settlement with WCW over the ownership of the strap, he began using a different belt for the gimmick since it was going to be blurred anyways. So apparently they make it sound like it was Flair's choice.
Which makes sense because you had to pay like $25,000 back in the day to when you were champion. Right. So
yeah.
and then it does say that for Survivor Series 91, the belt that Flair was vanishing was a WWE World Tag Team title, which we already knew. But I found that in one of the articles I read I always find articles online when I watch the shows, just because there might be stuff we miss or stuff we're not sure of why it happened, and I just don't want us to sound completely stupid. So.
No, I appreciate that because I knew it was something to do with the belt. But I'm like, that's clearly not the big gold, but it was just confusing because then in the promo later on that he has the big gold. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. I assume it's one of those things where he wanted to make sure he kept that thing with him because as long as he had the belt and hadn't negotiated with WCW yet or was still trying to negotiate with them, he had all the power. If the belt somehow, say Virgil was going to WCW and the belt was out there and he fucking took it with him.
Yeah.
Virgil would not do such a thing.
No, he is a stand-up guy.
Yes
who loves meat sauce, apparently.
Yeah.
He tried to take Eric Bischoff to Olive Garden, but Bischoff wanted nothing to do with it, I guess, from what I heard. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just goes balls out with everything in his career.
Especially on Cameo.
Cameos are nuts.
So our next Survivor Series match, you have Sergeant Slaughter, Jim Duggan, the Texas Tornado, who's Kerry Von Erich, and El Matador, Tito Santana.
Chico. Sorry. I had to throw that out there because that's the slang that used to be used by Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah. Can't do that today.
No. But I felt weird not having him say it like 5 times during
the show, right?
So.
They're going to get a win over Colonel Mustafa, who's the Iron Sheik, if you didn't know, which I don't know why they just didn't call him the Iron Sheik because he was previously the Iron Sheik in WWF, but whatever.
Anybody that was a fan when he was there and then saw this guy come in, they're like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, he wore the same stuff as the Iron Sheik did. Like, it's not anything different.
I mean, slightly different maybe, like pant wise, but he had the same boots.
The same boots, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, see, theirs went ding, 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 did a ding, ding. Mine went ding, 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 did a ding, ding.
Right.
I'm glad Roman got the Vanilla Ice reference there for a minute.
Yeah.
So he's teaming with the Berserker, Skinner, and Hercules.
Skinner, who is Steve Kern, the second joint, by the way.
And Berserker was the Barbarian at one point. Another
Berserker was the
name
Barbarian.
change.
Steve Kern also was in charge of OVW, I think, for a long time.
Yeah,
or Georgia Champ, one of the two. FCW.
It wasn't OVW because OVW
It was Florida Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, because OVW was shit. I just watched the Ruthless Aggression thing on him.
Oh well, it's Al Snow now. I don't know what it was. Yeah. But yeah, they're accompanied by General Adnan and Mr. Fuji. Here's what I don't get: like Sergeant Slaughter just a few months ago was an Iraqi sympathizer, and now all of a sudden he's back to being that USA guy. Like that's like there are face turns, but that's got to be a hard face turn to make when you're like basically denouncing your country in the middle of a war in real life.
Yeah,
and then now I'm a good guy again. Like, I don't know.
I was just kidding, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, so far, look at the running themes from then to 2021. Multiple gimmick changes of people you clearly know are the same person. Multiple heel and face turns that just don't make sense. Big men dominating wrestling, character-driven programs. Sound familiar? What's kind of going on today? But yeah, I agree. Like, I don't know how you can be someone who is literally like you said, during the Gulf War, like, yeah, I sympathize with Iraqi and I hate America and got literal death threats because the heel he got to.
Yeah.
No, I'm with Jim Duggan. We're Team America all the way, baby. Like,
yeah, right.
Like, I don't know. The match itself was okay. Nothing special. Kind of found it amusing that the Iron Sheik got eliminated by a clothesline. Devastating move. Yeah. But I think this match probably, if you were looking to get the crowd, should have gone on first. I think the first match probably could have main evented the show. But then you don't have the storyline. Then that kind of affects the storyline with Hogan and Flair in the title match. So I guess you couldn't. But like for getting the fans over, I think this would have been probably a better choice to go on first. Match wise, no, because I don't think the quality was there. But you have a lot of fan favorites in this match.
Well, and this is back when Hogan was having the match right before intermission, and then he'd get the fuck out of there before the big crowds and all the people would try to rush up to him and everything else. And it just shows how weird the booking was, because nowadays, if you don't close with a title match on a pay-per-view, people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But yet there were two way lesser matches that went on after the title match. But their theory was, we're going to have an intermission, and this match is going to start us to the end of the intermission will start after this match. And then we'll come back. Like, if I was a fan, those other two matches weren't terrible, but like, I didn't really care. Or like, if I was a kid, I'd be like, I saw Hogan. Can we go home now? Like,
well, right. But I mean, and also I think what hurt is, you have Von Erich and you have Tito Santana, who are pretty small individuals by comparison to the rest of the beefy ass ring. So it was just a big, use your phrase, Roman, styles clash of just muscle and people beating the shit of each other. And then you have these two workers who have a completely different style than the rest of their team and rest of their opponents. So I think that kind of hurt too. It was just like all over the place. So this would be one I would probably say skip. I mean, it's cool to see like some of the favorites on there, like seeing Sergeant Slaughter and seeing Jim Duggan and seeing Von Erich and seeing Tito Santana. Not seeing so much Colonel Mustafa because, again, he's the Iron Sheik. But it's just cool to see it for nostalgia purposes. But the match itself, nothing to write home about.
Well, and I think the biggest takeaway from this whole show is how good some of the mid-card people were that you don't really appreciate. Like Ted DiBiase in the ring, man. Like he doesn't get enough credit for the stuff he could do. Tito Santana, Kerry Von Erich, like some of these guys, unless you were in Texas, you don't really know who Kerry Von Erich was at the time. Like you heard of him, but you never saw. So that's one good thing it did, is it showed, like, I mean, there were some moves that DiBiase did. And I remember growing up thinking this guy was like a bum. Like he was a $1 million man, but he couldn't wrestle. Like he would buy a champion. Like, and that was the point. I get it. But like he did a Randy Orton-esque power slam, where a guy hits the rope and he spins him and I'm like, shit, I didn't remember Ted DiBiase ever doing that. So,
and this is towards the end of his wrestling career. He didn't wrestle much longer after this.
No, and that's, like I said, that's one thing this did, is that it at least opened my eyes a little bit more as a 35-year-old instead of like a 5-year-old. Like I was like, well, shit. I'm like, these guys, and again, the name, but you don't really think of Ted DiBiase as a great wrestler. You just you
Mhm.
don't. You know the name and the character. The character is a good character. The wrestler,
Well-
you're like, oh, it's Ted DiBiase.
And I think that's always been kind of my issue with the golden era is since it's so character driven, you almost forget how talented they were in the ring because you remember either their awful gimmick if it was a bad gimmick or their great gimmick if it was a great gimmick, but you don't always remember the in ring work because that was always kind of the second fiddle to the storyline, to the show, to the presentation. Which I get it, it's sports entertainment, it's wrestling, but we're wrestling fans too, and like you said, it was cool to see someone like Ted DiBiase kill it again. And like I said earlier, the Lord, is so underrated. I used to think, oh, he's just a rip off of LOD. He's just trying to do their face paint when I was a kid. But I've even seen him wrestle in the Indies, a few years ago, like in some video clips, and he still did pretty well. And he was one of those wrestlers that, like Roland said, you go back, oh, he sucks, he was terrible. You watch, like, no, he was actually really good. I just didn't appreciate it back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was after this match is when they had the was it after this match where they had the interviews with Jake the Snake Roberts and Macho Man?
If it was either before or after this, yes. But yeah, it was right
I
around.
feel like they had the Savage one first. Like,
Yeah, they weren't back to back.
I feel like Savage's might have been right after the first match.
Yeah,
And then I think
So-
Jake's was after the second.
yeah. So they basically were promoting their match at this Tuesday in Texas with the funniest stipulation I've ever heard that I like kind of laughed out loud. All reptiles are banned from ringside.
Cannot have any reptiles at
No
ringside.
reptiles, no alligators, no crocodiles, no nothing, no snakes,
Skinner's
No-
like, shit, I got
no
nothing to do.
lizards, nothing.
Skinner's like, I guess I'll go paint myself up as Doink. There can't be any reptiles here.
You can get Frankie if you can borrow Frankie from Coco Beware. That's okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah,
But you have no reptiles. Damien,
No reptiles.
Damien or any of his buddies.
I mean, it's not like they followed their stipulations anyway, because I'm pretty sure at one point Gorilla Monsoon said managers weren't allowed at ringside, but Sensational Sherry was at ringside the entire time during the opening match. So,
Yeah, Piper laid one on her.
yeah.
But next up, we get to our world title match between The Undertaker with Paul Bearer and Hulk Hogan. You got to remember, this is early Undertaker here. He just debuted, not the I think the Survivor Series before, so they've been in the company a year. This match, I don't know. It was okay. I wasn't crazy about it. I mean, there's a lot of shenanigans with Paul Bearer, and then Ric Flair comes out and it cost Hulk Hogan the win. There was a tombstone on the chair, and Undertaker's your new champion. But I don't know. It just, for a title match, just left a lot to be desired to me. And you have two iconic characters. Undertaker maybe not iconic status at this point, but he was undefeated at this point in WWF. So I think they could have done a lot better with this. This almost should have had an Andre versus Hulk feel to it, and it just definitely did not have that feel.
Yeah, and I remember when Mongo and I discussed doing this pay-per-view rather last week, I mentioned to him, I'm like, oh, that's when Flair came out and they tombstoned it, because this is the tombstone that Hogan swears to this day the Undertaker spiked him on. And it's like, your head's like this far from the ground. What the fuck are you talking about? He swears to this day that the Undertaker spiked him. And it's like, there's like, even in 91, there was camera footage that's not even close.
I was going to say, if anything, his knees took more punishment than Hogan's head did because Undertaker protected his opponent.
Yeah,
that's why. That's why, spoiler alert, if you watch most of their tombstones, it's usually more of a 69 than it's a tombstone because the guy's head's in their crotch, because obviously you don't want to drop someone on their friggin' head. And
right.
I agree with Tim. It was just, I don't know. They just definitely just had competing styles. And Hogan, at this point, he hated losing clean, so there always had to be shenanigans when he lost. It always had to be interference. It always had to be the ref turning around. And what kind of sucks is, knowing this is Undertaker's going to win the title, but he's going to drop it again in 6 days at the next pay-per-view. So it's like, what was the point? Like, almost this match was point. Like, the build up to it was phenomenal. They showed some of the promos on this card of him having the coffin and scaring Hogan and attacking Hogan. But excuse me, what was the point of this whole match?
To really further the Flair Hogan thing, really.
Right. but it just kind of sucks. It's like Tim said, he undefeated Undertaker. He's supposed to be the Phenom. He's your new it gimmick that just debuted a year ago, and it's like you're playing second fiddle between, like Tim said earlier, a love triangle, hate triangle.
Yeah.
I just want to say something. You said that Hulk Hogan doesn't like to lose clean. Not only that, but if you listen to one of our episodes, he also does not clean very often as well.
That was like one of the first episodes.
That might have been our first episode, actually.
Yeah. That's one of our best outtakes ever.
Yes.
and I mean, honestly, today is the 2-year mark right here.
Yes, today is our 2-year anniversary of Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. So thank you guys. I had no when we first started doing this role, and I didn't think it was going to last 2 years. To be honest with you, I don't think either of us did.
To be honest, if we hadn't branched out the way we did to Mongo, I mean, back almost a year ago, when I went in the hospital for about a month between rehab and the hospital for my back, the show might have ended right there.
Yeah,
it might have just been done. I mean, and then by the time I got out, who knows if we would have picked it back up again or not. So obviously everything happens for a reason, and yeah, it's awesome that we're still here. But yeah, when you obviously have like these grand plans, but then you like in realism, you're like, yeah, okay, like
yeah,
you know,
everybody's subject to change.
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
No, it's definitely I was gonna say it's been a really cool year too, because to see it grow is phenomenal. You know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I kind of was looking at some stats today to see how much has grown since the 1-year episode. So since the 1-year episode, we've increased by 2,000 downloads, 120 followers, and we went from averaging 5 listeners to about 50 plus now. So it's really cool. We couldn't do it without everyone listening, so we appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys inviting me on this journey, because I think this has been fun and it's great. I love that everyone's talking to us. You know, I literally ran into someone the other day who had some friends over at her house. Her name is Kelly, that listened to us. So it was really cool that these 2 guys listen to us, and it's to hear, oh yeah, they listen to your podcast, they know about. I'm like, really? It's just cool. And Roland has talked before, his wife having an interaction with someone at her place of business, and
yeah, she signed more autographs than you guys.
I know.
and so we appreciate it. Make sure you keep telling your friends about us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love doing this. I know, Tim loves it, Roland loves it. We wouldn't do it if we didn't have fun, if we didn't like doing it, if we didn't like picking on each other. And trust me, if you would know, if I didn't like it, I would have already left. I get verbally abused here. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you do.
I deserve it.
Yeah. But I was going to say, if you texted it to us, we might not get it, but,
Haven't any flubs this week, though. Yeah.
That's true. You have been better since we blasted you about a month straight on.
That's true. So shout out to Kelly, by the way. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. No, it's cool when you hear just the encounter that Amber had with the customer at work. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, no shit. Like, it's just small world, man. And then you have, thankfully we have other friends that were wrestling fans that have helped spread it too. But you also have there's numerous people that I see liking our Facebook page. I have no clue who they are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're just random people picking our page up, whether it's through the podcast or somebody tells them, people in different countries. It's crazy. I mean, who would have thought, 2 years ago when Tim and I are in his living room with that shitty mic trying to get through episode 1 that, we'd have fans in how many countries now, Mongo? What is it total? 9?
We're at 27 now.
27 countries?
Yep.
Holy shit. Wow. I undershot that by times 3. Holy hell. Wow. I mean, 9 would have been cool too. 27 is pretty impressive. But yeah, no, again, I know this turned into a thank you session real quick, but I mean, we need to thank you guys, because if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be doing it. I mean, yeah, it's cool. We do it for ourselves. We want to shoot the shit. But if every week we had 2 listeners, we probably would.
No point.
We'd be like, okay, this is dumb.
Yeah.
At least, and one of them was my mom.
Shout out to Linda. She listens every week. I
am glad that she listens. I'm thankful she listens, and she usually gives us really good feedback. And the best part is she doesn't even like wrestling. She just doesn't. She's watched it for a bit because my dad used to watch it here and there, and that's how I started watching it, obviously. It's she knows some of the people. But it's not like she's like, ooh, wrestling. She, so.
So she's not going to play the Jack Tunney drinking game?
Oh.
Probably. Oh, shit. Probably not. I don't have any good alcohol here. All the stuff here is stuff that Tim would drink.
Whoa!
Whoa!
What's that supposed to mean?
Wow.
It's the soury stuff. I'm not a big fan of that stuff. I don't like the soury. I'm not saying, well, okay, so I guess good alcohol is a bad. I don't have any of my alcohol here. I have stuff that my wife and Tim would drink. Is that better or worse? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm trying. I'm like Mongo talking about Gorilla and Bobby. I'm just fucking digging. I'm just,
you're just
shoveling one foot at a time.
Having said that, though, if there's any alcohol companies that want to sponsor us out there, let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, speaking of sponsors, this is the last week to get in there.
Yeah, you only got a few more days to get your Clemento specials going. $8.99 for a large cheese. Small cheese is $6.99. You get a steak and cheese and a beer for just $11.99, or a pitcher of beer for $8.99. So a lot of cool specials. You have until the end of the month. Just mention Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present when you go to Clemento's, 160 Washington Street in Rochester. Say hi to Steve and the gang for us.
You fucked up.
I did.
Up. You did. It's $9.99 for the large pizza.
Oh, okay. It's $6.99 for the small, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The $8.99 is the pitcher.
Yeah, $8.99 is the pitcher, and $11.99. Okay, all right.
But I didn't get to get the full Tim special of the $11.99 steak and cheese and a beer, but I did get a steak and cheese Wednesday night to watch Dynamite because we were hungry, wanted something to eat, so we figured let's grab steak and cheese and Clemento's. I'm not saying we weren't promoted if we like it is good food, so like we're not just bullshit. So if you've been, like Roland said in the past, if you had a bad experience, like go back. It is not the same because let me just tell you, I am a picky bitch when it comes to steak and cheese, and that is a good steak and cheese.
Mongo be a picky bitch. Apparently, it's what we've learned today, folks.
I'm saying that to Shawn Michaels, like he's a picky bitch. That actually is a good segue into our next match here. It's another 4-on-4 Survivor Series match. You have the Nasty Boys and the Beverly Brothers. Hint, hint. That's the tag team Roland was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
With Jimmy Hart and the Genius. They're going to get a win over the Rockers, which is Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, and the Bushwhackers in 23 minutes. This match went way too long for me. It was just a Nasty Boys match. I love the Nasty Boys. I'm really entertained by their matches. Should not go 23 minutes. No. They should not wrestle 23 minutes. But the whole point was to tease the dissension between the Rockers. This is leading up to the famous barbershop segment. I love the fact that they said that Shawn Michaels just walked out. He actually did get eliminated. Gorilla Monsoon apparently did not notice that in the match. So he got hit by one of somebody's legs and got
Jannetty spun the guy into him essentially.
Spun the guy into him and got eliminated. Gorilla, that went past Gorilla Monsoon. I love Gorilla, but that one got past you, Gorilla.
He was too busy talking about Jack Tunney.
Yes.
I had to pause for Mongo to take his drink there.
So that was the whole point of this match, was to further that storyline. But yeah, just way too long. That's I was just like, why is this match still going?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And this is really like you said, it furthers the storyline, and this is pretty much it for the Rockers. Besides the barbershop, which happens at the end of the year, it happens in like December and it airs in January, and then Shawn's shortly after that with Sensational Sherry, and he's off to the races, and Marty Jannetty's killing people and maybe having sex with his daughter at one point and all this other stuff down the road. So you can clearly tell who was the better of the two out of that tag team when they broke up. And then not only that, I think the Nasty Boys, like Mongo and Tim can agree, they are a very hallowed tag team, but their wrestling skill is on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 4. These guys are not physical wrestlers at all. They're technical wrestlers. Sorry. They're just not, they don't have that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, to make them have a 23-minute match. Good Lord, this thing just went on forever.
Yeah. I'm just picturing squints when you say that, by the way, from freaking Sandlot forever. Literally, that's all I could picture, because you both hit the nail on the head. It was a match that should have been 8 minutes tops, because That 4 is a generous because again, I'm also entertained by the Nasty Boys. I always thought they were fun, but they were better more of the hardcore street fights, brawls. I mean, I know they were tag team champs at one point, but no, the fact that Brian Knobbs got to pin Shawn Michaels is kind of a weird booking decision. And then, like you said, it would be about a week or two later that on that Monday Night Raw when the barber shop that he gets super kicked out the fucking window.
Mm-hmm.
So like you both said, it was just there to break up the Rockers, to tease that tension of will they or won't they, because it just couldn't have done anything else because it was just there and long. And I'm gonna be real, I kind of zoned out during this match, played my phone like Tim usually says. I don't really remember a lot from besides that because I was like, this match is too long. I'm kind of tapping out.
Yeah, I mean it's just, after about 10, 15 minutes, you're like, okay, enough. And it just keeps going.
So then we, and then we should mention this, like they're Mean Gene Okerlund is trying to get to The Undertaker to interview him. Sean Mooney got a word with Hulk Hogan, but Hulk Hogan didn't want to go on camera.
That's because he wasn't in the building still.
Yeah.
He was gone.
He's gone. But it all kind of leads up to our main event, which is a 3-on-3 Survivor Series match. You have the Big Boss Man and the Legion of Doom. They're going to get a win over IRS, Ern R. Shyster, and the Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon, in about 15 minutes here. Thankfully, the match didn't go too long. I mean, I think 15 minutes is maybe a little too long anyways for these guys. But again, it's a good way to send the crowd go home happy. Legion of Doom really over. Big Boss Man is over at this point. He's in the middle of his face gimmick, so it's a way to get the crowd to go home happy. Match itself, okay. This wasn't like your best pure wrestling pay-per-view. It was more for the name and the star power as opposed to pure wrestling. But again, I think it was a good way for the crowd to go home. If you're not going to have the title main event to show, it's a decent, substitute, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the way they had to do it because I think it was the next biggest names left. I mean, I know the Bushwhackers were over and the Rockers and the Nasty Boys, but like if they went on last, you'd be like, what's next?
Yeah.
And everybody would be filing out and you'd be like, oh, it's over? Like, really? That was it? So, and it was, I did like the way they booked this match where IRS hits, who did he hit with the briefcase the first time? Yeah, he hits Boss Man, eliminates Boss Man, and then he goes to hit somebody else from the other team. He ends up actually hitting Typhoon, and then Typhoon gets eliminated, and then Earthquake finds out, gets pissed off, and leaves. And then for a little while, the Legion of Doom is kind of fighting with the IRS, and then he goes to leave, and Boss Man comes back, and he chases. So, like, the storytelling was really good, too. The only thing I wonder is if Mike Rotunda refused to take the Doomsday device, because the match was not ended with it was just a clothesline off the top. Yeah. So he might have been one of those guys that was like, I ain't taking that fucking move. Like, I'm not taking it. I'll take whatever you want, but it ain't going to be that move, because I know back then there was a lot of people that were leery because Hawk, Mike Hegstrand, would just hit guys. And fun fact, Michael Hegstrand was also the guy that came up with the Doink character of an evil clown.
Yeah, and if you watch the origins of Doink too, it ain't no happy-go-lucky clown. It's like Stephen King It level clown when he was first concept. That's cool. I didn't know that it was him that came up with it, but that's pretty cool.
I didn't know until today. When I looked to see what number Doink Steve Kern was, I go, I think he's 2, but let me double check. And then I went through and I happened to catch that. So, but yeah, when Mike Hegstrand would hit, he would hit you with different velocity every time. So sometimes an Animal had no real control. He would just let you go. Yeah. And sometimes he might help you a little bit. And if Hawk hit you really hard, you're going over. If he hit you like he's supposed to and you got helped, you were falling the way you were supposed to. And there was a lot of, you see the videos out there where there are guys landing on their heads. There's some guys that flip all the way around. And it was a very unsafe move, especially in the WWE rings that were made of concrete. You don't want to take a bump like that anywhere, let alone one of those rings. So I'm curious. I mean, obviously we may never know, but I feel like it might have been, because I mean, Rotunda's a good company guy. I feel like, you draw a line like, I don't want to like be paralyzed after this match. So let's do something else. Cause he's, like I said, Hawk still hit him with the clothesline. It just wasn't the Doomsday device. It was just a clothesline from the top rope.
Yeah.
and it's really the only one in the ring who could have taken it. I mean, you ain't gonna put one of the natural disasters up there, you know. So it's a good call. Like if he doesn't take it, nobody can. Because
Yeah.
I mean, imagine Typhoon going up on top. Like, oh man, like
If somehow Animal stood there long enough with Typhoon on his shoulders and Hawk jumped, he'd just bounce off, and Typhoon would collapse on Animal. Like, it's just,
don't give Vince ideas for crazy booking tricks, man.
it would be like you were. Fuck
But-
me, dude, I'm giggling so hard. Hold on. You remember when Jerry Lawler tried to play chicken with the midgets, and he made them put him on his shoulders? It was this Survivor Series match when it was Doink and Pink, Wink and Dink against Cheesy, Sleazy, and Queasy and Jerry Lawler. And they decided to have that chicken match, and Jerry Lawler's like, "No, I'm going up." And you see that little guy struggling. Like that would have been anybody with like Earthquake or Typhoon. They would have been struggling. It just would have been funny. Oh yeah, like, if you fans don't remember or don't know what I'm talking about, look that match up. Again, Jerry Lawler, Doink the Clown, Survivor Series. I don't know if it was. I don't know what year it is off the top of my head, but
I want to say it was 95, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what it's off the top of my head, but like it's the funniest thing because Doink gets one of his little guys on his shoulders, and then Jerry Lawler gets ready to get one of his guys, and the little person gets on the second rope, and Jerry Lawler he's like, no, and puts him down and makes him try to hold him, and the guy just like gets about 3 steps, wiggles, and falls over. It's like that's what would happen if Earthquake or Typhoon was on the shoulders of pretty much anybody.
It's like when you play chicken in a pool. It's if you try to pick up that one person you probably should in the pool, you're just like drowning underwater while someone's trying to, and that's kind of what it was. It's like, all right, so who's going to take the move? Like you said, a lot of people are leery, but there's rumors that Vince McMahon, the reason why he was in a neck brace in the steroid trial, that the reason why he had his surgery was he got drunk one night with Hawk and Animal. Now, this was told on Dark Side of the Ring, so obviously it's from Animal's perspective, so it's only one side of the story.
And it was Survivor Series 94 before you go any further. Just wanted to throw that out there. Go ahead.
Tim and I were close. But yeah, I guess legend is they were all at a strip club after a show one night, and they were talking about how people didn't want to take the Doomsday device because Vince was like, fuck it, I'll do it. And I guess Hawk was like, dude, we're in a strip club. No. He's like, I don't care. And I guess he straddled up on, Animal. Animal lifts him up, and Hawk jumped off a chair and clotheslined him in the throat. And he hit the stage, and apparently that's why he needed the surgery for his neck. Yeah. And that's why he had the neck brace, not because it was sympathy or anything. But.
He's crazy, though. Like, he's one of those guys, like, I'll give Vince credit for that. Like, if anybody thought something was too crazy, like, he would do pretty much everything before he wanted somebody else to do it. Like, I will give him credit for that because
he did it during the pandemic when they had WrestleMania the Performance Center. He jumped off the stage to show Rob Gronkowski how to do it, or if Rob didn't want to do it.
He's like, this is how you do it. And then he's like he's like that guy on TikTok,
right?
Hey, he's like, this is how you do it. And then shortly after that, Gronk not getting me again.
I was letting you go shortly after Gronk. What?
I was going to say, then shortly after that, Gronk's like, I'm going to go play football. It's safer.
I was just going to say, do you think Vince practiced getting himself thrown off a roof instead of Malachi and freaking Rey Mysterio?
He might have still been out there during the match. Who knows? They both fly over and like, hey, Vince. He's like, he's taking a nap on the roof during the show. They couldn't find him.
Is it sad, though? Like, the first time I saw that happen live, I was just like, throwing in a catering lake. But
back to catering.
But yeah, I don't know. I would say if I had to give this pay-per-view a grade, though, to go back to what we were talking about, I'm going to say maybe a 5, and that's generous just because the Ric Flair match is pretty much the shining star of this. Everything else is just kind of there. Like, maybe watch it for storylines, but this is why I personally have never been the biggest fan of the golden era, the new era. Because it was just character driven. The wrestling was always second fiddle. That's why, essentially, spoiler, this is why WWE is going to rise to prominence in a few years because of this kind of pay-per-views, these kind of matches where you're going to have some great matches sprinkled in, but there's so many characters and so many clusters that you kind of just tune out for some things. But I think a 5 just because Ric Flair being on there and some of the legends being on there, but from a wrestling standpoint, it wasn't that great.
Yeah, for me, this does not deserve to be a Sean Waltman, but it's also not as bad as Rick and Tully and Arn and Ole. I would say that it is an Alan Angels. That's where I would rate it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I give it a 5-2 just for the star power alone in the Ric Flair match. Yeah, I just piggyback off what you guys said. So that wraps up our discussion on Survivor Series 1991. Play the Jack Tunney drinking game if you do watch this pay-per-view. Next week, we're going back to the Attitude Era a little bit. We're gonna go to 1997, end of 97 into transitioning to 98 with DX in your house. Looking forward to that. You have Triple H and Sergeant Slaughter in a boot camp match, so that should be interesting. So I'm looking forward. I like the end of your house pay-per-views. So I think it should be really interesting to go back and revisit 97 WWF.
This is back when Slaughter was the Commissioner Slaughter. He was not the Iraqi sympathizer anymore.
Nope.
Again, he was, so it'll be 2 weeks in a row at Sergeant Slaughter Wrestling, so that should be interesting. Always a fun time.
I mean, I used to also love the In Your Houses too. Just they were fun and they were usually cheaper. So these are the ones I used to be able to watch because they were usually like $25 versus like the $50 specials, and they were shorter. So I could usually give it to my mom to let me stay up and watch these because for some reason they loved running these on Sundays. Back in the day, it's like, dude, I got school in the morning. Like it was hard. And then don't get me started when WrestleMania would come along. Like, look, I know it's over at midnight, but if I just go to bed at like 1 a.m., I can be up for the bus at 6. I'm going to be fine at school. I promise.
Yeah, right. And then you get the phone. Your mother gets the phone call. Your son fell asleep in the first period. Actually, he never got off the bus. He went.
I had something similar happen to me one time. I forget what pay-per-view it was, but I was in like, I don't know, 4th grade or whatever. And we had to watch we went to go watch the Nutcracker the day after a pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. I was zonked. I just fell asleep because I stayed up to midnight or whatever it was watching the pay-per-view. And then I have to watch, and it's a hot take, the boring ass Nutcracker. So all your Nutcracker lovers, send your tweets to Mongo. But
at WWPAP Mongo.
But I was zonked. So that does happen.
But that one you can actually send a TKURDT on air.
No.
No. That's the best part is that if you need to find me, it's just my name.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to look hard for me.
Or you can just follow Daddy Demo. He's resharing something or retweeting something from him.
Well, lately he's been streaming Pokemon, so I haven't been watching any of that garbage. I don't. I never got into that when I was a kid, and for whatever reason, and I don't mind when, like, again, this is totally off topic, and we have a little bit of time, so whatever. Streamers always get like criticized, and like people like lash out when they do something different. Like, I don't mind he's doing something different. Like, I have whatever, do what makes you happy. But like the people that like lash out and they're like, oh, when are you going to do this? You should do that. It's like, no, it's their own stream. If you don't like it, don't watch. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just not watching because that new game came out like last Thursday, and that's all he's done since. So whatever, which is cool. He's still an entertaining dude. I just, A, I don't get it, and B, I don't care. Like I've tried to watch. He streamed one of the older games a while back. I tried to watch it. I made it a little over an hour on the couch and I fell asleep. I'm not interested. It's like whatever. And like I said, he's entertaining, but.
And you can already do that for Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I did make it longer than Raw. So Raw's about 12 minutes in. The common cure for sleep apnea, Monday Night Raw. Well, although this past week we had to find out who stole that fucking egg. So. Yeah,
I didn't care when I literally saw that was trending, and like I'm like, oh, so they're gonna make a whole Raw episode on who stole a fake $100 million egg from a movie, but that's Vince's. That then he jokes about releasing people to pay for the. I'm done. Like, you're not good at meta jokes, Vince. You're not good at meta jokes.
Well, that's the best part too. It's like you're also now insulting the people that you just released by trying to be funny about releasing people. It's like you're a fucking idiot. Like,
he insults our intelligence as fans all the time anyway. So why not insult some other people?
Well, it's like I said, I have Peacock and whatever, that's fine. Like, and I can at least justify having Peacock because there's other things on there. Like, that's one thing. If it was just the network still, I don't know if I would pay for it because I'd be paying Vince money directly. So at least by having Peacock, and it does suck, but at least by having Peacock, I can justify having it. But like, I will not buy anything from WWE Shop. I just, A, all their shirts are black, and B, the way Vince treats his people, like, I don't want him getting any more of my money. Like, I'll watch the show if it's on Raw. Like, I usually don't watch it that day. Like, I might, if there's nothing on the next day, I might flip through it. But you won't catch me sitting through a live show because like I said, I'll fall asleep and then never. Because what'll happen is it'll air all the way through, and then it will not pop up in my watch thing, and then it's gone. So.
Yeah. But yeah, so luckily we're not going over current product next week. We'll be going back to 97, so it should be a little bit more entertaining than today's product. So hopefully you tune in next week. It's been a great 2 years, so thanks for listening to us. If you just listen to us one time, thank you. We certainly appreciate it, and just continue spreading your word about the podcast. But we will be back next week with DX in your house. We didn't fail to mention this. We all hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was this week, so hopefully you had a great holiday season. But we'll be back next week. Thank you. Take care. Till next week, I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Fulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. All together now. He's a picky big...
Oh, man.
We screwed that. We did not plan that really well.
Jack
no, not at all.
Jack
Fine,
Tunney.
Jack Tunney.
We'll just go Jack Tunney.
Jack Tunney.
Try to do something cool. Fine. I'm a picky, so you can say, go ahead.
Yeah.
You can do it.
All right. I'm a picky bitch.
Later, guys.
Later. We'll see you next week.
I hope you're all having a nice day.